All right, shalom, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. What's up? Nice to see y'all. All right, here we go. Okay. All right, so today we're talking about what what was titled "The Gift of Free Will." The gift of free will, and so we want to explain all about it. Um, and in order to do that, we have to do a little bit of a 1 minute review from what we covered last week. And so we'll do that just to get a little bit of context, and then we'll go forward. All right, so last week we spoke about the concept of the infinite, the infinite. And let's be clear what we're saying. Well, let's be clear what we're saying. We said last week that what we mean by the infinite is that it's nothing more than what it's not. Infinite, that which is not finite, that which is beyond the limitations of time and space. And in one word in Judaism, we have a word for this, and that is God, right? This is what we mean by God in Judaism and Kabbalah. This is referred to as Ein Sof, literally meaning no end. But end doesn't just mean it's some blob that continuously expands forever and ever, because that would be finite actually. Because if you pause that in time, that would be that you'd be able to point. Here's where it starts. Here's where it ends. So really, what it means is no finiteness, no endness, meaning no limitations of time and space. So this is what we mean by the infinite. We explained about basically, we said that look, you can't, if why the infinite put us here with a brain to figure out that he, she, it exists. And of course, we said last week, well, what can you possibly do for the infinite? And that is correct. The answer was nothing. Hold on a second. I'm getting some messages here. Volume is a little low and image looks with delay. So hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can, maybe can I somehow check into this in another way? Are you guys hearing me okay? Is there still a problem? Are we okay or are we not okay? Someone clue me in here. Because I got a message that there's an issue. Anybody? All good. All good. Okay. All right. If there's a problem, let me know, and I'll quickly try to switch to the phone. It'll only take a minute. All right. So we got this idea, this concept of the infinite. And the question was, all right. So what do I need to, what does the infinite do? Like, why does the infinite put me here, right? And so we explained that there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to make a change in the essence of the infinite, right? If you pray to God, is God now infinite plus one? Of course, the answer is no. And so the next question we asked was, okay, well, if there's nothing that God's going to quote unquote get out of the deal, the next question was, what can I get out of the deal? And so we saw, I don't know how to make it any louder. You guys are telling me that it needs to be louder. Let's see. Don't know, sorry. Don't know. If it's needed to change, let me know and I will do that. Okay. So we explained that there's that. Yeah, probably. So we shared that the idea is like this, right? That there is that if there's no change that's going to quote unquote happen to the essence of the infinite, then the next question, of course, logically we ask is like, all right, what can I get out of the deal, right? What can I get out of the deal? And so we explained that, look, what is it that drives us? What is it that is at the core of the choices that we make? And so we shared last week that it's clear that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, right? We give the example of someone who picks up a wallet on the street. They can either choose to keep the money, assuming there's contact information. They can choose to keep the money. They can also choose to give back the money. But we explained that really at the core of this decision is that there's an aspect of everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. The one who keeps the money says, I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, therefore I'm keeping that money. And Let's see if that works better. And anyone, and also the opposite, right? Anyone who's giving back the money they too are taking back the feeling of doing good, being good, doing all those wonderful things that society has told others to believe is good. So we see that really. Oh yeah, okay, good. Got to hear it. So we see that really it comes down to that everyone wants to get the most pleasure and happiness out of life. And so we said, all right, so if everyone wants to get the most pleasure and happiness out of life, what is the most available? And so we said, look, you take look around the world and you see that there's all sorts of pleasure, joy, happiness options out there. You got sex, drugs, rock and roll. But what do all of those pleasure, joy, happiness options have in common? They're all in the finite. They're all limited to time and space. There's a high, but then you come down from that high. And so we said, all right, look, all those are cool, but is there anything that goes beyond those limitations? Anything that goes beyond the finite? Perhaps something we've mentioned already, right? The infinite. And so we said, look, this is the Jewish idea. The Jewish idea is I want to get the most out of life, and the most is going to be to build and facilitate a relationship, association, affiliation, connection with the infinite, right? And so we shared. We were brought to the next question after that, which is, all right, if I want to build that connection to the infinite, the next question, of course, is how? How do I do that? And so we explained that one thing we see about relationships, and we can see it from our own relationships, is that in any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. And choosing, you have to have the ability to destroy it. Let me say that one more time. Let me take that down. Distracting. In any relationship, the quality of a relationship depends on your ability to choose it. Choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy it, right? So we said this last week, and we said, look, what does this mean? This means that in order for you to have a higher, more refined relationship, it means that you have to have real capacity to do a choice that will bring down the relationship. Let's explain that a little further, right? Compare the parent relationship, the spouse relationship, romantic relationship, partner, whatever, whatever it is. I'm just going to call it spouse, just for here, okay? The guy, gal, or spouse kind of relationship. The parent relationship is something that is much more intrinsically, if everything else is healthy, is much more intrinsically stable, right? You could do something good with the parent, something bad. It's basically taking care of you, right? Your parents aren't leaving you unless you come at them with a chainsaw in a healthy situation, right? So and we're back. All right, hold on. While I'm talking to you guys, I'm going to try to jump in from another. Oh, thanks. Spotlighted me. I'm going to try to jump in at the same time from my phone, and we're going to see if we can do this up a little bit better here. Okay. So here we go. Okay, hold on. I'm joining in with another video. Hold on a second. Join with video. There we go. Okay, I'm jumping in. There I am. Look at that. Wild. Okay, give me a second here. Give me a second here. That's weird. Okay, we good? Someone say something to me in the chat. I think I see it if you do.
Okay, awesome. So we were saying that, okay, so we were saying, apologies, that in any, so if you were to compare the spouse relationship to the parent, um, relationship, you find that in the parent relationship, the relationship is much more inherently stable, right? Whereas where we grow up and we transition from the parent relationship, hopefully we become more mature, we become more independent, and this relationship with the parents starts to make us a little bit sick. Like, where's the me in the relationship? I do something good, it makes the relationship. I do something good, I do something bad. Either way, I'm more or less getting taken care of. Like, okay, fine, things are a little better, a little worse, but like at the end of the day, the relationship is more or less stable. And so we leave that stability, inherent stability, to go to inherent delicacy with a relationship with some other person, where if you say to them what you said to your mother, you're in a heck of a lot of trouble. Isn't that true? And so we explained that why is it that we make this move? Because there's something about the relationship with that partner that is much more refined. It's much more real. It's much more raw. The quality of the relationship is higher when you do it right. Right? When you go ahead and you have someone that you're interested in, and what does that mean when two people get together and they say, I want a stable relationship with you, right? They're not saying, the person saying that to you is not saying, or if you've ever said that to anyone else, you're not saying, I want a relationship with you like I have my parents, right? No, they're not saying that. They're saying, look, I want to take this inherently delicate relationship with you, this relationship where I could go the other way, really I could do something that'll destroy the relationship, or you could do something that'll destroy the relationship. But nevertheless, I want that each of us should go ahead and choose towards our relationship with one another, towards our commitment, towards that connection. And then tomorrow, again, when there's a real pull opportunity, desire to do something that might bring down the relationship, nevertheless, to strengthen ourselves over ourselves, to choose towards that commitment, towards that other, towards that relationship, then do it again next week, then do it again next month, then do it again next year, then do it again next decade. And ultimately, we'll have taken this inherently delicate relationship and turned it into a stable relationship. But that stability is real. That stability is yours. That stability is based on the sum total of the choices that you made in that relationship, where it really could have gone the other way. You hear that? And so this is the kind of the advantage of that higher level of spouse-like relationship. That's the higher level spouse-like relationship, the spouse relationship over the inherent stability of the parent relationship. Are you people with me so far? Because here comes the bombshell, my friends. The bombshell is that this is really what we're going for in Judaism. That yes, we have a paradigm of we want the parents, God is a parent or God is a father, right? But we find that really that's the fallback position, right? Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Yes? So what does that mean? That means to say we call on that parent kind of paradigm, yes, with the aspect of taking care of me and God to hook me up with food or whatever. You can look at like a parent as well also. But really the main thing what we're thinking about, what we're calling, when we're using that paradigm, when we play, when we talk or communicate with God or think about our relationship with Hashem, is when we mess something up, right? There's a prayer in Judaism called Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. When do we say that prayer? 10 days of repentance, right? Repentance assumes we mess something up, right? There's also during the fast days, right? We mess something up in order to have those fast days. Besides Yom Kippur, we mess something up. So, and Yom Kippur is all about actually Teshuvah as well. So it means to say that what we're really, right, what that teaches us is that this opens up, that really what we're after is we want to go ahead and build, when we want to build that relationship with the infinite, yes, we have that parent relationship, but really also we're after that spouse-like relationship with the infinite, that choice-based, more refined, more dignified, making real choices in that relationship. And so this necessitates the concept of free will, right? Because only when you have the real free will capacity to make a choice that will destroy, that will bring down your relationship with the infinite, only then when you get and choose towards that relationship with the infinite is that choice a real choice. And only then are you able to access that higher level of spouse-like relationship with the infinite. Specifically because choosing it means you have to have the real ability to destroy. You have to have the real ability to mess it up. And so this necessitates the concept of free will according to Judaism. Who is with me so far? Lie to me. Perfect. All right. So this is where we begin the conversation for today. Everything we just said is review. This is where we begin the conversation for today. So let's dive into a little bit this concept of free will, right? Let's dive into a little bit. Let's just be clear, when we talk about free will, we can now, by the way, based on everything we said, we can also define certain things. We could define now what we mean by good and what we mean by bad, what we mean by good and what we mean by evil, right? Where if it's all about, if I want to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life, and the most is going to be to build and facilitate my relationship with the infinite, then I have just by default defined what we mean by good and what we mean by evil, right? Then good is going to be that which connects me to the infinite, and evil is going to be that which disconnects me from the infinite, right? And so it's of supreme importance to delve into this concept of free will and understand where our choices lie. And of course, the first thing we want to do when we talk about where our choices lie is to figure out where our choices do not lie, right? Let's just be clear what free will is not, right? First and foremost, free will is not the ability to determine realities. Free will means that you have the free will capacity to make a choice in your life, what you do within the given reality, right? Let me explain what I mean. Imagine you have a person who goes to the top of a building and he says, he pops a couple of pills and he says, I'm gonna fly home now. And you are there with your friend who says this, and you say, oh, look, I want to be a good liberal or whatever, to each his own. It's my reality that if he walks off the building, he's just gonna, drop down because there's something called gravity. But hey, it's his reality that he's gonna fly home. So who am I to tell him that my reality is real and his reality is an illusion? No, I'm going to be open-minded. And, who am I to say? It's gravity is my truth, but clearly it is not his truth. So sure enough, you let this guy walk off the building, and guess what? He falls straight down. And at some point, right on the way down, right at the end, his reality hits, his virtual reality hits reality, and usually in life that is called pain, right? And so that means to say, again, free will does not mean you have the ability to choose realities. Free will determines what you choose to do within the given reality. And therefore, it's of supreme importance for us to clarify what reality is, what those realities are. Because if we don't, so then we could be making all sorts of choices, but we're going in the wrong direction, or we're going in a very destructive direction if we're basing it on false assumptions of reality, right? And so that's number one. So now, number two is that people will sometimes ask, well, hold on a second. Why would I ever choose against this relationship with the infinite? After all, if this is what life's all about, if this is reality, why would I ever choose against it, right? And so in order to explain this, I'll give you a familiar dilemma. We'll call it the dinner dilemma. Happens here every night, thank God, right? Which basically goes like this. I can either have salad for dinner or I can have chocolate for dinner. Those are the options, right? Now, the funny thing is, let me give you a little story, right? The funny thing is you recognize that there is there's like a balance here. There's like two things coming in conflict, right? What's going to be beneficial in the long run versus what I'm going to feel is very, very beneficial in the short term, right? I'll give you another example, right? When I was growing up, my parents, they had in our house, they had this big jar of taffies, okay? This big, those old school mixers with the I don't know if they still have them, I think they do, but these like metal bowls and the big thing that sticks in and mixes everything. Anyway, they had it full with taffies. And my mom would tell me that, like, okay, you can only have 3 taffies after you've finished all of your dinner, including all the vegetables. Now, I was 7 years old at the time, and I understood very well why my mother only allowed me to have, those a few taffies after dinner. It was very clear to me. It's because my mom is one of those mean and evil, rotten people called parents whose role in life is to deprive kids of as much pleasure as possible. And so therefore, one day, my mom, my parents, they went out for a night in the town, and they left the babysitter in the house. And 20 minutes later, babysitter is conked out in front of the TV. And I figured, oh, now's my chance. I was once in that Jewish class. I heard that dude with the beard say that everyone wants to get the most pleasure, joy, happiness out of life. That's it. I'm gonna be a good Jew. I'm gonna jump into that the bowl of taffies, right? So sure enough, I take down this 5 pound jar of, or whatever it was, of taffies, and I jump down, and life is, everyone wants to get the most pleasure out of life. Let's do it. And so I scarfed down every last taffy. My friends, 10 minutes later, I was in the bathroom, puking my guts up, saying I was never going to listen to another person with a beard again. So why, what exactly was the intent of my mom in that little story, right? Was my mom trying to deprive me of as much pleasure as possible? No. It's very simple, because me and my mom at that time had different definitions of pleasure and joy and happiness. I was taking the child view, and my mom had the adult view. The child definition of joy, happiness, pleasure is that pleasure is what I feel like when I do it, right? The adult definition is that pleasure is the totality of how this will affect me. Right? Now, what happens when you have a whole society making choices about pleasure, joy, and happiness, but with the child definition? You have a lot of destruction, a lot of chaos, right? That's what the AIDS problem's about back in the day. I guess still also, I don't know. That's what the drug problem's about, right? And so this is really, in a certain respect, we take this simple examples, we can answer our original question. Why is it that anyone would choose against the relationship with the infinite? Very simple. It's the difference between the chocolate and salad, right? Salad, the stimulant when you eat the salad is not such a big deal. It's nice, okay, but no big deal. And the reward for it is ultimate and subtle. Right? Whereas the reward for chocolate is immediately enjoyable. And also, if you're really hooked on all the cocoa and all that stuff, then you also get another kick somewhere in here. And then also, what's the downside of chocolate? Okay, maybe a couple extra pounds, maybe a cavity, who knows? But the point is, you have a choice to make in that situation. Right? And so the same thing is sometimes in our relationship with the infinite. It's the same thing sometimes, right? And so therefore we are in a world that emphasizes these kind of choices all the time, whether it be in our relationship with the infinite, whether it be just in other aspects of our lives. Okay. Now, some people sometimes ask, well, is every situation, every choice, every situation I find myself in, is every option possible on the table all the time? Like, are we saying that free will is that expansive? And the answer is not necessarily. According to the Derech Hashem, one of the great Kabbalists, Ramchal Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, in the 1700s, he explains in a very clear way that no. There are that, like, basically it's like, you're not going to be Moses and you're not going to be Hitler. Right? There are certain realistic relative expectations for each individual based on the time, place, religious background, economic background, emotional background, whatever it is, that, like, we all have places where we have choices that is within the realm of that we can make. We all have at least what's called nikudat bichirat chafshit, at least a point of free will. Somewhere in there you could go one way or another. Right? But don't think like, oh, woo, I wasn't Hitler. Look at this beautiful relationship with God I have. or like, oh, damn, I wasn't Moses. I guess I suck. I'm nothing. No, you were never, God knows, you were never going to be Moses. You're never going to be a Hitler, right? The question is, as the famous Hasidic story goes about Reb Zusha, that he wasn't worried if they're going to ask him if he's going to be Moses or not. They're going to sit when he gets back upstairs, they're going to ask him, were you Zusha? Right? Famous Hasidic story. So this is the story. There's no competition with anybody else. There's no competition with anybody. Let me repeat that. There's no competition with anybody else. You look over, you see other people doing things. You think it's out of your, don't get discouraged because they're doing something so much more than you, because their relative expectations for where they're supposed to be at are totally different than where your expectations could be. Also the opposite. Don't look at someone else who's doing much less and be like, all right, listen, I don't got to worry. At least I'm doing X, Y, or Z. This guy isn't. You don't know if that other what you're quote unquote capable of, what you're expected, all that stuff. And you don't know what they're capable of and what their expectations are and how much energy is put into them and their situation, all that stuff, right? And by the way, also use this on the flip side as well. It means also you can't judge anybody else. You can't look down on everyone else because you don't know. Not only do you not know who is higher, you don't know who's doing more with what they are given, right? Imagine a guy grows up in the hood and he gets to be 15 years old, and they'd say, okay, you're 15 years old, it's time to learn how to make a living, right? So they take him around the corner, they say, oh, you see that guy going into the back alley over there? Here's a gun, go back, follow him back there, go take his money. So sure enough, he goes back there, and he goes there and he holds the guy up and he says, give me all your money. And the guy takes out his money and gives it to him. It could be that his area of free will in this particular situation is not whether or not he takes the money. Does he afterwards hit the guy over the head with the gun after taking his money? Or does he say, here's $2.50. Go take the subway home. Have a nice day. It could be that's his place of free will. We don't know. So the point is, you cannot judge. So much so is this the case that the Talmud says that it could be that you have a person who's being dragged away back in the day, in the times of the Jewish courts and stuff. I mean, there's still some Jewish courts, but not to this extent. Back in the times of the temple or whatever, when there's certain death penalties and stuff like this that were enacted in certain extreme cases. But imagine, and that's the point of what I'm trying to say. Imagine a very extreme case. The guy to be put to death by a Jewish court, you have to be guilty forget about beyond a reasonable doubt. There's basically beyond a shadow of doubt. And they're taking him away. They're taking this guy away. He is 100% for sure guilty of murder, let's say, okay? And they're about to take him to be executed. The Talmud says, you cannot say I am more righteous in the eyes of God than you are. You cannot say that, the Talmud says. Why? Because you don't know who has done more with what they're given. So whatever your friend is doing, I'm sure it wasn't the same thing that guy was doing, or that theoretical guy was doing. So the idea is there's never a time to judge. You can judge the action. You can say, look, according to the Torah, according to Judaism, that is an incorrect action. But you cannot say that is. You can say it's an evil action. You could say it's an evil action. You cannot say it's an evil person, right? You cannot make a judgment on the person. You can make a cold, hard judgment on the action, independent from the person who's doing the action. You could say, look, black on white, that's an action that is allowed. Let me look in the Jewish book. Oh, that's an action that's not allowed. Fine. But we can't make a judgment on the person because we don't know really where they're at, right? Not only do we not really know where they're at, the truth is we don't even know where we are at, right? Because we mentioned before, everyone has a space of free will, but where is that space for you? You don't really know. Think about that. We don't really know. All we can know is that we're looking to grow, looking to be a little bit more better, looking to grow quantitatively in Judaism by taking on more things, and also qualitatively by making it more concrete and making it more meaningful. All that stuff is good, but really, are we making choice? Really, have we gotten to our free will choice in that space, in that moment? I don't know, and neither do you. And so all we can look at is, hopefully, am I doing more today than I was yesterday, right? Or am I dealing with the situation today a little bit better than I would have dealt with that same situation yesterday? you know, and there's downs and ups to that, of course. And hopefully, okay, we like the stock market. Hopefully, we're like trending, like at least, you know, in general, trending upward. You know, so this is the situation of free will. We can go a little bit further. Hold on, how much time we got? We do have more time. Okay. So, firstly, questions, thoughts, ideas, anything we just said. Anybody? I guess you could type in, or you could just remain silent. There you go. All right, so I will continue. So I want to share with you another idea or two of free will, and that is that we find that free will comes that there's a principle that when we are accessing our free will, so there's an aspect for the good, of course. So there's an aspect of that the Hasidic masters explain is a person is doing living a personal miracle when they make such positive choices. And I'll explain why. When you choose to do the right thing over whatever you feel like doing at that particular moment, can you hear the idea that that is the personal equivalent of a miracle, Why? Because usually when we look at the miracle, I'll get to that question in a second. Hold on, I didn't see it, but I saw there was something. When we think about a miracle, we think of it as like, okay, there's a natural order, there's a natural way the world typically works. And then a miracle is that something came and went above the natural way things usually work. Right? Usually water is water, and then all of a sudden, somehow it turned to blood. Usually the sea is flowing, and then, whoop, just at the right time when the Jewish people needed it, boom, a wind comes, sea's totally split, Jews are going right through. Oh, right? Wow, amazing. So meaning that there's something that happened above what's the natural, right? Can you hear the idea that that's exactly what we're doing when we make a real choice? When we naturally feel like doing something that comes natural to us, it feels natural to us so much so that we think that it's like we want to even like put a rubber stamp on it and say like, of course this is good because this is who I am. Why is this who you are? Because this is who I've always been. Why have you always been this? Because this is all you've known, right? And so we make all these, we make it like, okay, this is the way it is quote unquote supposed to be. But then hold on a second, this is what naturally comes to me to do. And then I go ahead and I go outside that, I go beyond that, and I do the right thing on top of that. I'm able to push that aside, split that aside in order to go ahead and do something. I split the sea within myself. That's spiritual. That's a miracle. When a person begins to live like this, right? When that person starts to live miraculously, that is a tzaddik, right? That is a person who is living that and really making changes in themselves and working on themselves and being a better person, more refined person. That is righteousness manifest, right? That's really, righteousness doesn't mean like, oh, I'm some person high in the clouds floating around. No, it means down here in the nitty-gritty of life. Down here in the nitty-gritty of life. Am I going ahead and making real changes, real shifts in myself, in the dirt, in the trenches of myself, of my life, of my guts, of my habits, of my patterns, of my personality? What's personality? Just a collection of doing a bunch of patterns that you did a bunch of times. You realize that, right? It's nothing so special. So this is to be living a miracle. This is to be living a miracle, right? And this is what we're supposed to be as people. This is right. We mentioned a number of weeks ago in these classes that that's where spirituality begins. Spirituality begins when there's an assertion of the human spirit. When you say, okay, naturally I'm going in one direction, but I'm able to go ahead and make a real choice based on reality, based on truth, based on what I believe. And so we see it. This is what a person is supposed to be. How do you say a person in Hebrew? Is an Adam, right? Adam, the original person. Adam Arishon in Hebrew. Adam. What's Adam? Adam, the Maharal of Prague explains, is Aleph, Dam, the letter Aleph, and then Dam. Dam is a word that means blood. Aleph is numerically valued in Judaism as 1. What's 1 in Judaism? Don't need to even look up. You can just look down or to the right, to the left. One is God in Judaism, right? By the way, when we say that one is God, it doesn't mean that there's like Judaism believes in like monotheism, where there's one God as opposed to like 2, 3, or 4. Right? When we say one, the whole idea is the concept of infinite. What's infinite? Infinite is beyond the concept of numbers. That's what we mean by one. It means it's all one period. There's no one. It's not one as opposed to 2, 3, and 4. It just means one as in this is all there is, right? And so anyway, so what's a person? A person is dam, like we said, means blood, which is flesh and blood, with the aleph, with the oneness of God, with the spark of godliness, the soul. And the idea is that we want to go ahead and assert that oneness, that aleph, that soul, onto the flesh and blood, onto the body, and use the body as a vehicle for the soul, right? And so a lot of times it comes down to the mind versus the heart, who runs the show. Now, the heart, you have to give it its space. Our characteristics, you do have to give it its space, but who's running the show? Who's directing the ship? Is there no direction if the heart's just running it? There's no direction. We're not, what do you call it? We're not living a life of personal ownership and mastery, right? So this is the idea that it says in the Jewish sources that a person can actually be higher than an angel or lower than an animal. Why do I say that? Because an angel is like, let's start with the animal actually. Okay, an animal is basically doing whatever comes to it naturally, right? Its instincts, inclinations, even emotional responses also is a part of that, right? They have motherly instincts, right? Emotions, but there's no concept of like this consciousness of making a higher choice than what it feels to do, than its emotions, right? So if you see an animal go ahead and do like a quote, what seems to be like a good act or giving act or dedicated act to its owner or whatever, that's coming from a place of their emotional response, emotional instinct. Which, by the way, sometimes also same thing with the person. Like I mentioned before, it's hard to say when our real free choice actually is taking place as opposed to just an emotional response. That's true. But the point is that a human being does have the capacity to make those free will choices. An animal does not. And so therefore, if a person doesn't go ahead and make free will choices, and he acts just like the animal side of himself, so then he's lower than the animal, because the animal at least is being an animal. That's what he's supposed to do. There's no other option. There's no alternative for him to do anything higher. Human being does have options to make higher choices and bigger choices and better choices, and more goodly choices. And so if a person doesn't do that, and a person just lives like the animal, is actually holding in a lower level than the animal. However, opposite is also true. By the way, this is also why the animal in Hebrew is behema, which breaks down to ba-ma. In it, what is there? Rhetorical question, meaning to say that there's no higher choice of consciousness and spirituality, whatever that the animal makes. What you see is what you get. On the other hand, though, on the flip side, you have an angel. An angel is totally beyond the physical, totally clear on who it is, on what it is, on what its purpose is, on the reality of God, and the reality of the infinite, and what its role is. And so it's always just constantly actualizing its potential, doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? But the idea, though, is that if a human being makes the correct choices, makes those high choices, makes those soul, spiritual, refined choices, then the person could be higher than the angel, because the angel's always doing the right thing, but it's kind of like a spiritual version of an animal. It's just always constantly doing the right thing, always constantly making the right choice, but it doesn't even have choice. That's the whole idea. But when a person does the right thing, and he does have those draws to do other things and to go in other directions, so then, wow, he's even higher than the angel, right? And so anyway, this is the idea. Now, hold on a second. I wanted to see someone left a message over here, a chat. And then I have more to say. Hold on a second. How do we understand where we each individually stand in our free will? We don't know, Sarah. Okay, the question was, where do we each stand in our free will? Don't know. Another good reason why you can't judge anybody. You can't judge yourself. All you can look at is, am I growing today? Am I growing today? What is Hashem? There's two things. Am I growing? And also, even more importantly, is what does God want me to do in this moment? What does Hashem want from me in this moment? That's all we have. All we have is this moment, right? Don't look so far, ahead, and like try to box yourself into one thing or another thing, or box yourself into the past. It's just this moment. It's just this moment, right? So don't worry about like, oh, if I change this, am I really going to stick to the change or whatever? I don't know what tomorrow is. All I know is you have this moment, right? That's all we got. So let's stay present in that moment and try to do what's our best in that moment. That's all we have to really work at. That's all we have to look at. All right, my friends, I want to give you 2 more points before we call it. Hopefully we have enough time for them. Here it goes. Tell a little story. Once upon a time, there was a college professor of psychology. And this guy, he would show up to his university class and he would tell them day in and day out about different aspects of psychology, about how, he would preach the theories of nature and nurture. And by the way, Judaism is down with nature and nurture, the idea that we have genetic factors that contribute, that push us to do one thing or another. We also have nurture, the way we were raised and different things that happen to us that affect us. The idea is, though, that Judaism does not take those things to the extreme. Judaism says, yes, those all play a factor. They impose certain things upon us and within us, but you can make a choice beyond those things. Right? We talk about people talk about genetic predetermination. So we say there's genetic predisposition. We believe in genetic predisposition, not genetic predetermination. Okay? And so anyway, but this psychology teacher, he was an extremist. And so he would go in and talk about, he was a behaviorist psychologist. And so he would go in and he would preach to his eagerly waiting students about how, they don't really make free will choices, and like how everything happens is from their pre-programming. And so of course the students love it and eat it up, because it means like, okay, I'm not responsible for my actions. I could live as immorally as I feel like living, and it's all good because, hey, I had no control or potential to do anything else. So one day, there is his, he comes home a little bit early from his university class. And guess what he finds when he walks in unexpectedly on his wife in the house? That's right, you guessed it, my friends. There is his wife with his best friend. In that moment, my friends, what do you think happened? Did he say, oh, well, everyone's just a product of their own impulses and opportunities and the nature and their nurture? Or did something else transpire? Right? No, of course, he took out the shotgun and he shot the guy, right? So what does this teach us? This teaches us that really everyone deep down, they can theorize and philosophize whatever they want. Deep down, when it comes to it, everyone really believes that there's free will choice. Everyone really knows it deep down. We testify to it by our actions and by our emotions, right? Does that make sense? I hope so. Right? By the way, I'll give you another similar. Imagine he loves this wife, right? And later on, she's walking outside, and imagine a bird falls from the sky, and I don't know, a crazy example, but imagine before it falls from the sky, lands right on her, totally kills her, knocks her out, whatever, right? So is he going to be angry at the bird? No, he's not going to be angry at the bird, because he understands the bird had a bird heart attack or something. I don't know. The bird had no choice in the matter, right? So he's not going to be mad at the bird. He's not going to take the bird and then stomp on the bird. And no, I was going to say he's going to be very sad that his wife's gone, maybe. But so hold on a second. So you're gonna blow out this guy's brains, who's with the wife, and then the bird that kills the wife, that you're mourning, but you're not like pissed off at the bird, right? Why? Because you understand that the bird didn't make a choice, and this guy, there's a part of you that believes that this guy should have chose something else, that there was options in front of him, and he chose an option that how could he choose that option? What does how could he have done that mean? It means that you believe that there was something else he could have done, should have done, was more likely to do. Okay, so you believe in free choice, right? Now, by the way, I happen to be on the other side of this, right? I happen to be on the other side, which I'm saying, okay, look, don't make, and it's to a certain respect, don't make a judgment. That's where the person was at the time. Who are you to judge, et cetera, right? I've been saying the opposite, but you see the college professor, he's the one who says that people make choices. So anyway, I'm not saying the guy doesn't make choices. I'm just saying we don't know where the person's choice is, and maybe you can't make a judgment call on him. You can make a judgment call on the action. Anyway, I hope you're with me, and I hope that I didn't undermine my point for you. But point is like this, that we all know deep down, everyone, that free will exists, and all the other stuff is just philosophy class, not real life. Doesn't play out in real life, right? Okay. Now, next question that sometimes people ask is, and we'll close with this question, unless someone has another question. If God knows everything, if God's beyond time and space, and God knows what's gonna be, then how is there really free will? And if there's free will here in the present, how could it know that how could God know what's gonna be in the future? Right, the classic question. So in order to address this question, I'd like to give you a little demonstration here. Hold on a second, I need something from, see if I can find something, give me a second, hold on. Okay, here we go. Okay, my friends. I hold before you the book of time. Okay. I hold before you the book of time. And in this book of time, right, we are all in the book of time, right? Let's crack it open and have a look, shall we? All right. We got the beginning of time. Over here, we got the end of time, or messianic days, or what have you. But here, we open it up. Here we got, towards the beginning, we got Adam. We fast forward a little bit. We're up to Abraham. Fast forward a bunch. Now the Jews are leaving Egypt. Fast forward a bunch more. We're up to the Middle Ages. And again over here, okay. At the end, we have whatever the end of time is, messianic age, whatever it is. Fast forward. Okay, here we are, right over here. I come to the page, the year 2019. Okay, stay with me. Now let's just be clear. Every page in the book of time represents a moment in time. Okay, and of course, each of us, we're all in time. So we are all in the book, making real choices as we move from moment to moment, right? So here I am in the year 2019. There's a certain scenario that's presented to me. I make my choice. Next moment comes, there's a certain scenario that's in front of me. I make my choice, etc., etc. Fast forward all the way to the year 2021, okay? So that's me in the book, making real choices. But what about a being that is outside the book? What about a being that is beyond time? What about God? So God being beyond time, so God is outside of the book, or at least not limited to the book. So he could be beyond the book and looking at the book in the way kind of like we are looking at it here. You could see the beginning of time, you see the end of time, you see Abraham, you see the Jews leaving Egypt, you see the Middle Ages, you see 2019, you see 2021, you see the end of time, and it's all in an instant, just like this, just like you're seeing it all right now, right? And so therefore we can all be within the book, making real choices, and yet God knows what we're quote unquote gonna do, because it's only gonna for us. It's not gonna for God. Remember, gonna is a word of time. Going to, it's future. And so this is the idea, at least the opening of an understanding of how they can both simultaneously be true, and one does not unearth or uproot the other. Cool. Questions, thoughts, ideas. I think there was someone who put a question up here. Hold on. It's all one past, present. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's God. That's the higher reality. That's God's perspective. And yet we still make choices. Just because Hashem has a view of everything doesn't mean Hashem doesn't make choices. Right. Cool. All right, any other questions before we call? Okay, good, my friends. Hopefully this is meaningful. God willing, we will continue with the next topic. Continue with this theme, with this consecutive classes that we've been having. God willing, next week, same time, same channel, with the help of the one above, who's also below. Peace and love, y'all.